Hashtag why reading books makes you smarter. Hashtag Brain Boost Academy. Hook. People who read at least one book per month earn, on average, 166% more over their lifetime than people who rarely read at all. 166%. That is not a rounding error. That is not a coincidence. That is a measurable, documented gap between two groups of people doing one simple thing differently. And the most unsettling part? The gap starts forming inside the brain within the first 7 days of consistent reading, long before a single dollar of that difference ever shows up in a paycheck. Tease over the next 10 minutes, you are going to discover exactly what happens inside your brain when you read a book, why it is fundamentally different from every other form of media consumption, and how even 30 minutes a day can physically restructure your neural architecture. We will look at the neuroscience, the data, and the real-world results. But there is one insight coming up in this video, something researchers discovered only recently, that completely reframes what intelligence actually means. Most people have been thinking about it completely backwards. Background humans have been reading for roughly 5,000 years, but for most of that history, it was a privilege reserved for the elite. Priests, scholars, kings, and merchants controlled access to written knowledge, and that access directly translated to power. This was not an accident. The people in charge understood, even without neuroscience, that reading transformed the mind in ways that nothing else could. The printing press changed everything in 1440 when Johannes Gutenberg made books accessible to ordinary people. Within 50 years, the literacy rate in Europe began climbing, and so did the rate of scientific discovery, philosophical debate, and economic innovation. Historians call this period the beginning of the modern world. That is not a coincidence either. When populations started reading, civilization accelerated. Fast forward to today, and the average American reads fewer than 4 books per year. Meanwhile, the average CEO reads more than 50. Bill Gates reads 1 book per week. Warren Buffett estimates he spends 80% of his working day reading. Elon Musk taught himself rocket science primarily through books. These are not people who read because they have spare time. They make time because they understand something that most people have never been taught about what reading actually does to the human brain. Main content here is where the science gets genuinely fascinating. When you watch a video or scroll through social media, your brain is largely passive. It receives information, processes it at a surface level, and moves on. The cognitive load is low. The engagement is shallow. But when you read a book, something entirely different happens. A landmark study from Emory University tracked participants who read a novel over 9 consecutive days. Using fMRI brain scans, researchers found that reading did not just activate the language centers of the brain. It activated the motor cortex, the sensory cortex, and regions associated with spatial navigation and physical movement. The brain was not just reading about a character running through a forest. It was, on a neurological level, simulating that experience. Neuroscientists call this phenomenon neural coupling, and it is uniquely powerful in book reading compared to other media. But here is what nobody talks about: this simulation effect means that reading fiction, not just non-fiction, makes you measurably smarter. Every time you inhabit a character's perspective, your brain builds new empathy pathways. A study published in Science magazine found that reading literary fiction significantly improved theory of mind, the ability to understand what other people are thinking and feeling. This is a core component of emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence is one of the strongest predictors of leadership success, relationship quality, and lifetime earnings. So reading novels is not an escape from the real world. It is direct training for navigating it. Now consider what happens to your vocabulary. Researchers at the University of Oregon found that children who read regularly were exposed to 50% more unique words than children who primarily consumed television. That vocabulary gap compounds over years, creating massive differences in comprehension, communication, and critical thinking. Words are not just labels. They are tools for thought. The more words you have, the more precisely you can think. And this brings us to one of the most important, and most underappreciated, benefits of reading books: the development of sustained attention. We are living through an attention crisis. The average human attention span has dropped from 12 seconds in the year 2000 to approximately 8 seconds today. A goldfish, famously, holds attention for 9. Reading a book is one of the only activities that directly and systematically rebuilds that capacity. Every time you sit with a book and resist the urge to check your phone, you are strengthening the prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain responsible for focus, decision-making, and impulse control. What is the compound effect of that? People with stronger prefrontal cortex function make better long-term decisions, resist short-term temptation more effectively, and perform significantly better in high-stakes professional environments. Reading is not just making you smarter in the abstract. It is specifically building the cognitive architecture that success in modern life demands. Deep dive. Now let us go deeper, because the benefits extend far beyond what most people expect. Reading has been shown to reduce cognitive decline as you age. A study published in the journal Neurology tracked nearly 3,000 elderly participants over 6 years. Those who engaged in regular mentally stimulating activities, reading chief among them, experienced a 32% lower rate of cognitive decline than those who did not. Reading does not just build the brain. It protects it. There is also the sleep connection. The University of Sussex conducted a study examining various relaxation techniques before bed. Reading a book for just 6 minutes reduced stress levels by 68%, more than listening to music, more than drinking tea, more than going for a walk. Stress is one of the primary destroyers of cognitive function. Cortisol, the stress hormone, literally shrinks the hippocampus, the brain's memory center, over time. By managing stress, reading protects the very hardware responsible for learning and retention. But here is the insight that reframes everything. Most people think intelligence is about how quickly you absorb information. Researchers now understand that intelligence is fundamentally about how deeply you connect information. Reading books, especially long-form books, forces your brain to hold large amounts of context simultaneously, create connections between chapters, and synthesize ideas over hours or days of engagement. This process of sustained synthesis is exactly what builds crystallized intelligence, the kind that compounds over a lifetime and cannot be replaced by a quick Google search or a 3-minute video summary. Analysis. So what does this mean in practical terms? It means the reading habit is not just educational. It is one of the highest leverage investments a person can make in their own cognitive capital. Consider this: a book contains, on average, the condensed knowledge and experience of years of a person's life. When you read 50 books, you are effectively borrowing 50 lifetimes of perspective. No other medium delivers that density of insight per hour of investment. The successful people who read compulsively are not doing it for entertainment alone. They are running a relentless arbitrage, acquiring knowledge and cognitive capacity at a fraction of what it would cost to learn those lessons through direct experience. Every book is a cheat code. And yet, 60% of adults in the United States report not reading a single book in the past year. That gap, between those who read and those who do not, is widening. And as artificial intelligence accelerates and the knowledge economy demands increasingly sophisticated thinking, that gap will translate into outcomes more dramatic than anything previous generations experienced. The readers will compound. Everyone else will fall further behind. Conclusion: here is what the evidence tells us, plainly and powerfully. Reading books rebuilds your attention span in an age engineered to destroy it. It develops empathy and emotional intelligence that directly improve every relationship and professional outcome in your life. It expands vocabulary, which expands your capacity for complex thought.